one of the myriad of websites that has been promoting the idea of New Hampshire independence here in the Shire. The idea of let's put something to the vote. Let's get a constitutional amendment in front of the people, because in New Hampshire we do not have what's called a ballot measure, which a lot of states have, where you can, like California has this, Florida has it, you can collect a certain number of signatures, for instance, and then it's usually, in those states it's usually hundreds of thousands or whatever. Again, we don't even have it here in New Hampshire. Here, everything that gets on the ballot has to go through the state legislature. And so the idea that we came up with, we being some of the hosts of the show, Ari and I were involved in this process. Bonnie, I believe, was on some of the meetings as well, with a couple of state representatives who were willing to kind of put their careers on the line, essentially, to put this idea forward. The idea of New Hampshire declaring independence peaceably, peaceable independence from the United States. That was what the proposal was that became, and I don't even know if you call it a bill, if it's a constitutional amendment, but for short terms, a bill in front of the State House, CACR 32, a historic bill that for the first time, maybe in all of the United States history, no one has yet called in to say that this has been done, even in the southern states, even during the Civil War times.
And even that Democrat, or I think it was a Democrat today, said this has never been done. We've never had this discussion. No state has ever had this discussion.
Was that the Democrat? I thought
or
that
it
was
might have been Brody Deshays. Yeah.
So, and he's wrong about a lot.
Yeah, he's wrong about a lot.
So it's hard to take what he says at face value. But
he spoke a lot today, but he won't debate Alu. It's like, if you're not passionate enough about it to debate Alu.
It's because Alu would destroy him.
Yeah.
It would be amazing to watch that happen. By the way, it's Ian here tonight.
And Matt.
And Bonnie.
So this got started last year. It was during the summertime. Dave Ridley, RidleyReport.com, had called into the show and was bemoaning that bills cost $2,000 a piece to put forward. Now, we still don't know where Dave got that number from. I don't think he even knows where that number came from. And Dave, of course, for listeners who, if you're a longtime listener, you know Dave is a super activist. I mean, he's one of the most consistent, probably longest running. He's one of the earliest movers for the Free State Project, which is
he's the reason I live here.
Yeah, libertarian migration here to New Hampshire. He's the man. And if you want to have somebody with energy on your team, you want to have Dave Ridley. That guy's
absolutely.
He's a doer.
He's great.
He's creative. He's funny, and he's just amazing. So he said he wants to move forward with doing something to leave the union, but he's worried about the $2,000 that it costs to hear a bill at the
I know
State
where
House.
he got the number. It was some guy, and I'm not going to remember who because I didn't know who he was, debated him in the past and called him out saying, you're a hypocrite because you're a libertarian, but you put forward bills and it costs the people $2,000 every time you put up a bill, and that just stuck with him. So I don't know if he really double checked and knows that it costs $2,000, but that guy accused him of being a hypocrite.
I'm skeptical of that, just simply because it only costs so much to have that house, the State House, heated, and the bureaucrats that work there are on salary. They don't get called in for an hourly pay job if they have to come in for an extra half hour or whatever. So I question the idea that it's $2,000, but I guess what you could do is take the full budget of the State House and divide it by the number of bills that come up every year and kind of throw that number out. I don't know.
Okay.
That's
but
one
would
way
it change if a new bill went in or didn't go in? I don't really know.
Very small. The amount would be very small because there's literally almost 1,000 bills every year that these people hear. So I question his numbers, but that said, wanted to get Dave Ridley on, wanted to get him excited about it. So Aria and I said, we'll do it. We'll kick in the $2,000 and we'll give it back to the taxpayers somehow. We hadn't figured out how at that point. We thought we were just going to hand out $20 bills on the street or something like that. But what we ended up doing was giving away gold backs. We gave 5 gold backs to each person that came to the hearing that I think all 3 of us attended, the 3-hour-long hearing at the State House. This amazing hearing where only one person from the public, from the average people of New Hampshire, came out to speak against this. Otherwise, it was all people speaking in favor of independence.
There's like 70 people in the room.
So yeah, Arya stood there with a stack of fives, which is
that was
those
incredible.
Are worth like
that was
$20.
such bold. That was so bold.
Yeah, I mean it's way better than a single gold back. That's a single gold back is great, but a 5 gold back's 5 times as great. And so we handed
it's like
those
$20.
It's exactly $20 worth of gold backs. So we did that, and then we still had some more. We weren't able to give away all 2,000 at that particular event, so I gave out some more singles at the Libertarian Party convention, and then subsequently the what they call Porcupine Day, which is a Free State Project event. So it went to the activists, it went to the people who come out and do things. But we did what we promised we were going to do. We spent that $2,000 and gave it back to the people of New Hampshire.
High five, Ian.
Yeah, so that part got done. That was the easy part. The hard part, of course, is getting a bill, a brand new bill, one that not only has not been seen before in New Hampshire, but has never been seen before ostensibly in the entire United States. And if you know for sure that something like this happened in a southern state prior to the Civil War, I want to know about it. Obviously, there was some sort of political thing that happened there to have those states declare independence, but I don't know if it was actually a vote of the people. It might have just been those state representatives saying, we're declaring independence, right? Like I'm not, even though I'm from the South, I'm not intimately familiar with that.
Well, you don't get taught stuff like that in school. I never got taught about the fact that we had the right to secede in our Constitution, even though I went to Texas middle school history, history.
I was probably 19 before I ever heard anything other than that the cause of the Civil War was slavery.
Yeah, that's the official government line, and I don't want to rehash the Civil War. Obviously, it was a war to keep the Union together. That's what it was really all about.
There was so much Abraham Lincoln worship in there today.
Oh, there was so much. My
least favorite person.
There was so much U.S. nationalism going on in this room, and I've got the audio because I got the video as well from what happened today. I was there with a video camera. Today was the day for listeners that may not have been following this closely, that this bill, this CACR 32, this constitutional amendment, that if it were passed would go on the ballot in November and the people would be able to vote on peaceable independence from the United States. It failed today. Ultimately, that's what the big news is. It went down, as one website puts it, in flames, indepthnh.org, gloating about what happened here. And it did go down pretty hard. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
It's not the point, though.
Right. What is the point?
The point is somebody said the words, we want to break up with you. Somebody actually aired that complaint in a legislature in the United States.
Right. And in this case, it was actually 13 somebodies.
It's great.
13 people voted to pass this bill.
And not all of them were sponsors of the bill.
7 people were sponsors, so that's 6 others who joined those sponsors. I presume all the sponsors. I didn't double-check the list of voters versus the list of sponsors, but at eyeballing it looked like all the sponsors signed on to this. So this is pretty... I was hoping for 20. Bonnie thought it was going to be 60. I'm like, no.
Well, I expect more people not to be NPCs. I guess I just forgot.
No, these people are... Even the Free Staters, a lot of the Free Staters, the so-called Liberty reps, too afraid.
Well, one of them told me today, no, it's not a vote just to get the people to get to vote on the ballot. It's also my opinion, and I don't think that we should secede because they'll bomb us. And that she must have just not read it. Because,
I think Brody got to her.
Yeah, that's true. Might have scared people. I mean, he went up there and was threatening people today, basically.
I've got the audio.
We'll see what happens.
We can play it here. I'm not going to call it much of a debate, but different sides got to speak, and we'll get into that here. The number is 603-283-6160. Plus, can you repair relationships that have gone bad due to political differences? Plus, DuckDuckGo has gone woke. We'll get into it coming up. Free Talk Live.
There are basically 2 types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
when a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here if you want to join the show. We're talking about New Hampshire independence, which had its big vote today in front of the State House, full State House, 400 seats. Not all 400 were there, of course. That's very unusual that all 400 will be present. I think there are around 360 people at one point in the day. And we'll continue the discussion because I've got the audio here tonight. Joining you, it's Ian,
Matt,
And Bonnie.
Bitcoin.com is a great source for learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. You can go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started at the top of the page and start learning about the world of cryptocurrency. It is easy. It's easy to do it, but you just have to take the time to start learning. And there's some basic concepts you need to get down, like decentralization and blockchain technology. And it sounds daunting, but it's actually pretty simple to get the basics down. Go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started. To do that, they've got videos there that'll come up. There's the first one's, I think, 3 minutes long, so you don't have to invest a ton of time to get down some of the basics over at Bitcoin.com. Plus, they got the latest news headlines at news.bitcoin.com. If we get a chance, maybe we'll talk about the Biden administration order that came out yesterday regarding cryptocurrency? That might be worth discussing.
I didn't get to hear it.
Well, again, maybe we'll get into it coming up here. But to me, we can talk about that anytime. It's not really like pressing. To me, this is pretty timely news, what we're talking about right now, and that is the fact that New Hampshire's state representatives voted today 323 to 13, if I recall correctly.
Something like that.
So a pretty big knockdown of New Hampshire Exit, the CACR 32, this historic bill that we've been promoting here on Free Talk Live. We were involved in the construction of the bill and helping figure out the wording. It was State Representatives Matt Santanastasso and Mike Sylvia. Two of them are both of those two are free staters. They're people that love liberty, that moved here, that migrated as part of the Free State Project. And that's, again, something that we're big fans of here on Free Talk Live.
The speeches they gave today, probably nothing like that has ever been said in those chambers. Like Matt Santanastasso saying the federal government today worships the dollar and its export is inflation.
Yeah,
nailed it.
It was pretty great. Of course, the other side had their speeches too. I've got all of that audio here, but just kind of recapping what happened. So these guys basically, it's hard for politicians to be anything but cowards. They are even the free staters, even the so-called liberty reps, and that's a shame but that's just the way it is. And so many of them are so concerned for what other people are going to think. There was more than one of these liberty reps that explained to me that they were concerned about getting reelected. What are the people going to think? Oh, I'm here to do the people's business. I'm here to represent the people. I'm not here for my own reasons or whatever, said one of them. And I'm sorry.
Which is exactly why they should have voted for it.
That's a total BS line.
Sure.
And it's a total excuse. It's cowardice. And here's why. Because his excuse was that, no one from my constituency contacted me to support the bill. So we're supposed to believe that as long as people would have called him, he said he got some calls from some of the activists.
But they don't count.
But no, they don't count. He wants to hear from the people, right? Okay, and he claims that he's doing the people's business and he's being the representative. And he's not going to do, he's not there for his own thing. Really? Well, what if some communists called you up? If 4 communists called you up, because it didn't sound like it would take a whole lot, right? Just some sort of indicator that some people wanted. So if communists called you up and said they wanted to put a commie bill forward, they want you to be the sponsor of it, would you tell them, well, sure thing, I'm just here to do the people's
business. Here to represent.
What a load. Mm-hmm. I don't believe for a moment
Chicken.
that guy would have done that. Yeah, he's afraid. And he's not the only one.
And the lady that was saying, I can't vote for this, even though she's supposedly like an A+ Liberty rep, she told me this is just fodder that the Democrats are going to use to smear campaign us. It's like, okay, you can't make yourself look good without the retarded Democrats who can't get any type of smear campaign right anyways. To actually stick,
And now that you say that, I don't see how they can't see how that's a good thing.
After getting smeared by the Dems?
Getting smeared by the Dems in New Hampshire is a great thing. It makes it draws attention. Mm-hmm. That's a good marketing ploy, if anything. The Democrats in this state write hit pieces relentlessly, constantly about, especially the Free State Project. And when they do that, it sounds like a marketing piece that you couldn't pay a marketing firm to write for you. Yeah. It's beautiful and eloquent and acidic and all the way around fantastic. So I say let them run with it.
It's possible they're right, though. It's possible that the people who are so afraid to vote for this, who in their heart of hearts might agree with it, They understand the federal government is evil. They understand the federal government is taxing us to death, is regulating us to death, is destroying innocent life all the way around the world. They know all these things, but they're just afraid of what the voters are going to think. And it could be that they're right. I mean, I'll acknowledge that. There may be such a nationalist fervor in New Hampshire amongst the people that maybe they will go down. Maybe these 13 people who voted for this are all going to lose their election on this one issue.
I'm sure that's
coming
going to
up
happen
in this year. But so we don't have a long time between when they did this vote and when the election happens. It's 10 months away, or 9 months. Less than that. 8 months.
But it's just like, what, do they need $100 that bad?
Well, I mean, they're going to argue that they can do a lot of good in that position, and this one issue just isn't that important to them. And there's no doubt these are reps who have overall have voted for more freedom on most issues. I'm not going to take that away from them, but it's just a shame to have them not even be willing to let the people vote. Because you pointed this out, Bonnie. This isn't a vote on secession. This is a vote on whether or not the people should be allowed to have their say. And I do understand that a lot of people are dense and they won't get that, right? A lot of the state reps, I don't think, understood that. Mm-hmm. So it's not hard to extrapolate from that average folks might not they'll just see this, oh, well, so-and-so voted to secede. No, that's not what happened. The 13 people today did not vote to secede. They may support secession, but they voted to say, you know what? I'm not the gatekeeper here, which, by the way, a couple of Democrats described themselves as gatekeepers today when I was trying to hand them flyers as they were walking in as to why they're anti-democratic on this, as to why they won't let the people vote. They literally used the term gatekeeper.
Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no video of that particular interaction, but it absolutely happened. And so, but the Republicans weren't any different. They just didn't use that word. When one of them was talking to me, one of them, State Rep Jess Edwards, who's like a former military guy.
Yeah.
He actually had come out to the hearing. He was the state rep, one of the state reps that spoke against it at the hearing.
He's a Liberty guy, but he's kind of a Republican Liberty guy.
Yep. And his excuse, was that, well, first of all, he doesn't support it, and that, I pointed out, well, you're just voting for letting the people vote. He says, yeah, but everything has to go through us first. We're the first line. We have to agree with it. And so he believes he is a gatekeeper. He believes that the state reps are the ones who should make these decisions first. And if then the state reps agree with it, then they'll let the people decide on it. The number here is 603-283-6160. But what could it hurt? What would it hurt to let the people vote on this? It would only hurt in their minds, in the theory that they might lose the next election on this issue. And I guess we'll see about that, whether or not these guys, these 13 people, go down in flames this November. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Ukrainian Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented civilian evacuations today. Civilians were able to flee through some humanitarian corridors elsewhere in Ukraine, but Mariupol has been without water and electricity for days, and the Red Cross says people have started to attack each other for food. Matt Fry of Britain's Channel 4 News is in Western Ukraine and says the attack on Mariupol is right out of the Russian military playbook.
They shell the residential part of a city, so practically most of it. They shell the hospitals so that the population has nowhere to go when they're wounded. And then they open up an exit of the city so that the population is siphoned off in these so-called humanitarian corridors, which have been promised but have not yet taken place.
The Russian embassy in London, meanwhile, sparked fury by claiming entirely falsely on Twitter that a pregnant woman seen injured in yesterday's attack on a Mariupol maternity hospital was an actress made up for the part. Twitter has not yet banned the embassy's account. The Ukrainians say 3 people were killed in that attack, including a child. Talks between between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers in southern Turkey made no appreciable progress today. At the White House,
if Russia does conduct a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine, there will not be a military response from the United States.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What we're saying right now is they have the capacity and the capabilities.
President Biden's press secretary Jen Psaki dodged questions after she warned on Wednesday night that Russia might launch a chemical weapons attack on Ukraine.
We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here.
The United Nations says more than 2.3 million people have now fled the violence, and at least 516 people have been killed in the conflict so far. From FSN's bureau at the UN in New York, Sarah Walton reports.
The UN Human Rights Office says more than 23 children are included in the fatalities list, but most of those killed have been adult men. 908 people have also been injured. Most casualties have been caused by explosive weapons, including shelling by heavy artillery, missiles and airstrikes. The UN says the actual death toll is likely to be much higher because of the difficulty in receiving information from areas of the country where there is intense fighting, such as the cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
The day's other headlines: Vice President Kamala Harris in Poland voiced support for war crimes investigations in Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire owner of Chelsea Football Club, was sanctioned by the British government, one of 7 oligarchs targeted. And US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live phones are open. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Matt, and Bonnie in the studio here tonight. Had to get up pretty damn early this morning, way earlier than I like to, but you know what? Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to be there when these state reps were walking in the door, which for them was around 7:30 this morning. So Bonnie and I were up at like 5 this morning.
Yuck.
And don't forget Mr. Penguin.
Mr. Penguin did make it there as well, pretty early on. But we actually were out there in the cold. They weren't allowing the average folks in until 8 o'clock. This, by the way, was the first day back for the full State House in the State House chamber where all 400 of them can be seated since COVID. So this was kind of a big day for them. A lot of the Democrats were deathly afraid, supposedly, of coming back. And they actually required, in order for them to agree to come back, which I don't know why the Republicans even agreed to this.
I wouldn't have.
It's crazy. But anyway, they installed plexiglass, not between every seat. They installed plexiglass between the Republican section and the Democrat section.
Are you kidding
Which,
me?
by the way, it didn't even go all the way down because there's more Republicans than Democrats, so it only went like halfway down. So half of the... It didn't make any sense, and it was 4 feet tall.
Democrats, like I say it all the time. If anybody follows my Facebook, statism is an absolute disease. It's absolutely dangerous, no matter what kind it is. It's insanely dangerous. But the left, historically, are liars. That's oh my God!
It's hard to see it, but you can see it down there.
There isn't 8 inches separating some of those people, and there's a plexiglass wall that's no more than 3 feet tall. Like their heads are above it in some parts.
And we all know that the masks don't do anything to stop transmission, but yet you've got Democrats, I don't know, 160 of them or whatever the number is, 150 Democrats sitting there right next to one another. Almost all of them wearing masks. I counted at
They're
one
liars.
point.
They're just dishonest people.
There were only 3 Democrats that I could see that did not have a mask on their face in this entire area, and the Republicans, it was like reverse. There were only like 3 Republicans that had masks on. So that was kind of the mask fear rundown in that room.
There was this man that basically couldn't talk. He had a bandana around his mouth, and then one of those really tight ones that kind of like go in and out when you breathe on top of that.
Oh wow!
And I was asking him, "Can I take this?" He was like, literally, it's like, wow, you're making yourself disabled just to feel safe from a cold.
Yeah. So, and by the way, the polling numbers, which we talked about, there was the Biden polling firm that came out with a notice last week or a couple weeks ago telling Democrats, hey, lay off on this fear stuff. Lay off on the restrictions.
Take the W.
Take the win. You guys, you did this. You defeated, COVID, or at least you gave people the quote-unquote tools to fight it. You guys won. Take the win. Stop coming up with new restrictions. Stop talking about restrictions. It's not polling well. People are tired of this, and yet here are the Democrats in the state of New Hampshire acting completely afraid.
They're behind
with the total virtue signaling.
They didn't have any Ukraine flags on them. That's the current issue.
Yeah.
They need to get with the current issue.
Yeah,
I thought for sure there'd be Ukraine flags up there in the Democrat side.
No, but so we were there as they were coming into the building, handing out flyers, and then finally, once we were able to go into the building, we focused in on just the doors to the chamber, the House chamber, the reps hall as it's called, and I think we were able to hit most of them with flyers, but there was no real point in doing it. It was just to have some sort of a show for them, like, hey, there's people here supporting this. Obviously, I don't think anyone's mind was changed in that last minute. That's how politicians tend to be, is they usually have made their mind up, and if they're listening to you, they're just pretending, to pay attention. I think a lot of them don't, but it's hard to say one way or the other. A lot of the Democrats refused to take it from me. There was a point at which, because the Republicans were in there first today to have their what they call caucus, which is like a fancy term for a political meeting with one political party. And then so after they were done with their caucus, then the Democrats came in from wherever it was they were. And so all the Dems came in all at once. And I had like a line of Dems coming through, and I'm trying to hand them this flyer. And I would say maybe 1 out of 10 would take the flyer from me. And
wow. I got much better numbers than that. Maybe it's because I'm just super cute.
You are, and some of them might know who I am, and I did get a couple of nasty words from some of them. But anyway, so the NHexit bill went down today, 323 to 13, and I do have the speeches from the floor of the House, and do you want to hear that?
Absolutely.
All right, so this is the very beginning of the hearing from today.
Table cock 32, yes.
That's how that guy, his name is...
roll call has been requested. That is sufficiently seconded.
Well, you should hear how he pronounces Sant'Anastaso.
Okay, so what's happening here is this guy, Al Baldessaro, he's one of the top Republicans. He was the
Members will take their seats. This will be a roll call vote.
He was the guy who was the chairman of the committee that heard this bill.
Right.
Claims he supports the idea, but there's no plan, so he's got to go against it. That was his supposed excuse for going against this. But not only did he go against it, he wanted to table this bill. And what that means in political parlance is that they would not even vote on it. So to table the bill is to say, we're worried about what the constituents might think if any of our people vote for this, and so we're going to try to protect them by motioning to table the bill. That way we don't actually have to vote on the bill. So the idea is they just put the bill on the quote-unquote table, and they never do anything else with it, and it dies at the end of the full House
To table
session.
something means to put it into the garbage can forever.
Yeah, basically. So that's what they started by voting on this tabling request.
House will come to order. The motion before us is the tabling motion on CACR 32. The chair recognizes Santo Notasto for a parliamentary inquiry.
His name is Matt Sant'Anastaso, but
if you can read it, you can say it.
What do you expect from these oldsters? Right. This guy's probably like 70.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that it is a long-standing American value that government requires the consent of the governed, and if I know that no New Hampshire citizen alive today gave their consent to be governed by this federal government, and if I know this bill will give New Hampshire citizens the historic opportunity to affirm their consent, then would I press the red button so another motion can be made?
One of the things I took away from today, having not spent this much time in one of these hearings before. I mean, I've been in and out of the full state house just to like zoom in on one bill or something like that. In this case, we had to wait through the entire day's hearings, which thankfully didn't take the whole day, but this was like almost the last bill that they heard, basically. So we were in there for a while hearing a lot of this stuff, and it's a really weird religion that these people have. So they have to talk in a very certain manner, and you could hear him doing that there. And so
he has to state it in a question form.
Right. He has to state things that are not questions in a form of a question in order for it to be allowed in as what they call a parliamentary inquiry, because he's supposedly asking the chairman of the State House these questions. Now, the chairman doesn't answer the questions. He's just there to make these statements. But if he doesn't say them by saying, "if I know," before he says the thing, then he'll be ruled out of order and be told he can't speak. And it's just this weird, stupid set of rules that they follow. Another thing I noticed that they do is whenever they call for like a certain type of vote, like a roll call vote, which is where every one of them is on the record, there'll be someone who will step out. If you're outside of the room at the time, you'll hear this. Like if you go out to use the bathroom or something, somebody comes out into the hall, one of the state reps, and they bellow, "Roll call!" It's like this really just silly, whole ridiculous process that these people go through.
But can you believe that was said in the state house today? Most people, or nobody alive today, gave consent to be governed by this federal system.
That's true.
I love that.
He said it. And
good job, man.
There's more coming up here. You can also join us at 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show. You don't have to talk about New Hampshire independence or secession in general. Although if there's something happening in your area and we don't know about it, we'd love to hear about that. The number is 603-283-6160. Texas, California, those are two of the other big areas where there are some significant independence movements. And New Hampshire's is honestly just getting the ball rolling. I mean, there have been for years advocates of independence. For instance, the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence, I believe, was founded somewhere around 2012, so it's been around for about 10 years now at this point. But there has never been, until this session, this House session, state representatives who are willing to actually put their, potential re-election on the line and move forward with this idea. It's never happened until now. And so we don't have the 100,000 supporters that they have in Texas, or more. I don't know. I'm sure they claim more than that, but there's a lot of people that support independence. They're like, on an email list or whatever in Texas. Of course, there's 29 million people living in Texas, so only 10,000 might have the same effect here in Keene if we could get to that point. We're not to that point yet. There's a petition over at NHexit.us that has 115 signatures on it. And we've been moving forward with this particular piece of legislation since basically September of last year. It's gotten very little media coverage. I mean, some letters to the editor have been written. The Keene Sentinel, to their credit, did write a couple front-page news stories about it because one of the state reps who's involved is from around here. His name is Matt Santanastasso, and that's yeah, as the chair of the committee. And
speaking of him putting his career on the line, I will seriously knock on doors for him again. I live close enough to this time. I have experience doing it. And this time I'll be able to shut down anybody's arguments if they say, oh, didn't he vote to do an insurrection? Then I'll be able to be like, no, actually what happened? Yeah,
that'll be interesting too, because then you'll actually know if anyone even brings that up. Oh, no, I'm not going to vote for him again because blah, 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 NHexit, right? We'll see. So we got more here from the hearing today on the bill that unfortunately did not even come close to passing because there's a bunch of cowards in politics, and that's something that is going to be hard to change. But regardless, whenever you put something forward for the first time, you can pretty much expect it's going to fail. Whatever the issue is, you can pretty much count on it's not going to happen because these guys are a bunch of old people. I mean, they're probably 90% elderly in this room. They're just not with the same issues that we are. They don't have the same value systems that we do.
They just want to vote on retirement-related things.
And they love they love America. They have fully bought into this nationalist concept, and they're going to defend it till they die. The odds that any of these people are going to have their minds changed is very, very slim.
I honestly thought the way that the Democrats spoke against this today was so weird, maybe because it might be a New Hampshire Democrat type of thing to do. How nationalist his speech was. He was like, my grandpa fought in the Civil War, and we love America, and this is a spitting in the face of the
We're gonna
soldiers.
get
I was
to
like,
it.
this is Democrats? It's kind of crazy.
The
Maybe
Democrats were the ones who were applauding all of the nationalist points in the room. It was a really weird situation where even though the Republicans voted against the bill, they didn't have the same effusive fervor against it. And we'll get some more of the audio here. So what's happening right now in this audio is they're trying to table the bill. And that means that there should be no discussion whatsoever. There can't be arguments for the bill, basically. And all they can do is what's called a parliamentary inquiry, where they are asking a question of the Speaker of the House that ultimately is really a series of statements just rephrased as a question. So here's more from that hearing. Okay, so Matt Santonastasso.
Chair recognizes Representative Baldessaro for a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, if I know that the representative from Ware did a great job in breaking this down on the reasons why this should not go to the voters. And Mr. Speaker...
No, he didn't. The representative he's referring to, he'll be speaking later on today, and he'll trot out all of the ridiculous objections that they have, trying to claim that it's treason and that you could be prosecuted and that it's unconstitutional. All of those points were batted down, aptly batted down in the hearing that happened in January that we all attended.
by like
every single one of
50
them.
speakers or something.
Yeah. And this guy sat through it.
Yep.
Right.
So, he's...
This guy that's speaking sat through it.
Yeah, he sat through all of those
He not only
statements.
sat through it, he moderated. He was the head honcho on the scene.
Yep. So he purportedly he paid attention, but he didn't learn anything, apparently.
What I know, and if you all knew, that there are no rules whatsoever what would happen to your retirement, police, military,
What I
funding.
tell you about retirement.
Oh, yeah. And then, talking about the cops, the firemen.
They want their free money and their socialism.
This guy's a Republican.
Bases, no rules whatsoever on this, and there's nothing in the Constitution. Then, would I speak on behalf of all, and let's just vote this table and move on. Thank you.
Right. He's a Republican. He calls himself a liberty guy.
The motion before us is a tabling motion on CACR 32. This is a roll call vote.
So what happens?
If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds.
So what happens in this case with a roll call? Normally votes are just all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. And then, the ayes have it or whatever.
And I don't even know how they can possibly choose which one won. Most of the time, it just sounds exactly the same. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just political, right? So the people who are in charge, the guy in charge gets to decide, it sounded louder to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have all his hearing
But
left.
on this one, they actually used the buttons.
Yes, so that's the difference. This is what they call a roll call vote, where they are going to be on the record. Because when it's all just aye and nay, you don't know who said aye and you don't know who said nay. You have no idea. There's no actual record of that. But now there's going to be a record of who is voting on this tabling thing. And interestingly, it was the Democrats who demanded the roll call vote on this because they want to put the pressure on the Republicans and potentially use this against them. They
wanted names.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
And
is great.
I wanted the names too.
Me
So
too.
in this case, I'm on the side of the Democrats on this one because the Republicans just want this thing to go away. That's what he's trying to do by tabling this. It's like, okay, let's just vote to table and just move on.
It either shows that they don't want the people to make any decisions and they want to make all the people's decisions for them, or that maybe some people will take it as they voted for secession, so they just want to not have to deal with it at all. They can't abstain, right?
I believe if they are in the room, they are supposed to vote. I don't know what happens to you if you don't.
Vollmer, Mr. President, had an opportunity to vote. House will attend to the state of the vote.
So then they do have a computer system. It's all done by buttons in their chairs.
162 voting yea, 170 voting nay.
Yay.
The motion to table fails.
By 8 votes.
Wow.
Now, the final vote on this issue was only 13 voted in favor of it. But those 13 votes was enough to make the difference up between this thing passing and failing. So the fact that we had the support that we did, even though it wasn't a whole lot of support, all the Democrats probably voted against the tabling measure. And again, the Democrats aren't the majority in the room. So all the table needs is just a majority to pass. So the Democrats couldn't have done that on their own. But because there were at least 13 Republicans who voted with those Democrats, the tabling measure failed. And so what that means is that now this bill cannot be tabled. They can't go this little end run around having this discussion. Now it's open for discussion. Now the different sides have to get up and speak and try to make their arguments about this bill. And so that's what
interesting gameplay.
Yeah, that's what this gets. So that's, it's not a win, quote unquote, but we didn't lose everything.
I think that those speeches that you're about to play, being in the State House today, are absolutely a win.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. This is going to be some good footage once I'm done with it. I had my camera there as well. So to the state's credit, believe it or not, one of the good things that came out of COVID, I don't give the state credit for much, but one of the good things that came out of COVID is they wired up the State House and the State Legislative Office building for video and audio. Now, it's a bit of a mess when it comes to the YouTube downloads, because I downloaded this video and the audio track was off by like an hour. So
oh my God.
The video is there, but the audio's somewhere else. It was really
somehow
confusing.
It's still an improvement.
But it's an improvement because at least it's there. And previously there was nothing except for just like an audio feed that came from the full State House. And of the hearing rooms, there was nothing before. Now every single hearing, actually, there's video footage of. You can watch it live. So there was, at least 100 people watching this thing live from their homes today. So that's a good thing.
I didn't realize there was people watching it live. Wow.
Yeah, they're streaming on YouTube, which pretty cool.
As Carla Garrick says, another reason this is a win, even though it didn't pass, is it moves the Overton window. Now there are people discussing secession in the House. They have to give us something closer to that.
That's right.
And it's going to be an issue this fall because we're going to make sure to get these candidates and get them on the record. We're coming up. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Ukrainian Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented civilian evacuations today. Civilians were able to flee through some humanitarian corridors elsewhere in Ukraine, but Mariupol has been without water and electricity for days, and the Red Cross says people have started to attack each other for food. Matt Fry of Britain's Channel 4 News is in Western Ukraine and says the attack on Mariupol is right out of the Russian military playbook.
They shell the residential part of a city so practically most of it. They shell the hospitals so that the population has nowhere to go when they're wounded. And then they open up an exit of the city so that the population is siphoned off in these so-called humanitarian corridors, which have been promised but have not yet taken place.
The Russian embassy in London, meanwhile, sparked fury by claiming entirely falsely on Twitter that a pregnant woman seen injured in yesterday's attack on a Mariupol maternity hospital was an actress made up for the part. Twitter has not yet banned the embassy's account. The Ukrainians say 3 people were killed in that attack, including a child. Talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers in southern Turkey made no appreciable progress today. At the White House,
if Russia does conduct a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine, there will not be a military response from the United States.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What we're saying right now is they have the capacity and the capabilities.
President Biden's press secretary Jen Psaki dodged questions after she warned on Wednesday night that Russia might launch a chemical weapons attack on Ukraine.
We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here.
The United Nations says more than 2.3 million people have now fled the violence and at least 516 people have been killed in the conflict so far. From FSN's bureau at the UN in New York, Sarah Walton reports.
The UN Human Rights Office says more than 23 children are included in the fatalities list, but most of those killed have been adult men. 908 people have also been injured. Most casualties have been caused by explosive weapons, including shelling by heavy artillery, missiles and airstrikes. The UN says the actual death toll is likely to be much higher because of the difficulty in receiving information from areas of the country where there is intense fighting, such as the cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
The day's other headlines: Vice President Kamala Harris in Poland voiced support for war crimes investigations in Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire owner of Chelsea Football Club, was sanctioned by the British government, one of 7 oligarchs targeted. And US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the astonishing discovery announced earlier this week of Endurance, the ship used by polar explorer Ernest Shackleton that sank in the waters off Antarctica in 1915. 107 years later, the vessel was located in remarkable condition by a team that used undersea drones and a host of other new technologies to scour the inhospitable seabed of the Weddell Sea, east of the Antarctic Peninsula. Historian Dan Snow helmed the search.
We were searching the seabed for a month, and eventually, as time was running out into the last few days, they came across a big acoustic signature using sonar pulses that they shoot down at the seabed. They then turned the cameras on their underwater vehicle and sent it to go and look at this signature, and it turned out to be Endurance. And it turned out to be Endurance in amazing condition. I don't know if people have seen the images today, but they are available widely, and it's the wood looks in perfect condition. There's the gold lettering of Endurance written on the stern. It is magnificent. It's the best preserved wooden shipwreck probably anywhere in the world.
He says it's in that kind of condition because there are no creatures in the Weddell that feed on wood, because there isn't any wood on the ocean floor apart from Endurance. It was discovered 100 years to the day after Shackleton was buried on the island of South Georgia after he died aboard another ship he was using to explore the South Atlantic. The main news again: the Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented Ukrainian civilians from evacuating today. Face-to-face talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers made little progress in southern Turkey, and US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
I'm Brooke Alvarez, and while I may not acknowledge your presence in person, and if you try to approach me, you'll most certainly be hit in the face with the stinging nettles I carry on me at all times, I like to take a moment every now and again to answer your questions so that you can get to know the real me. Here's a tweet from @Kirkamunga saying, "What is the most important thing to remember when talking to people who may not be as informed as you?" I love this question, Kirkamunga. There are 3 simple steps to dealing with uninformed people. First, when you realize that someone doesn't know something, repeat very loudly in their face the thing they don't know. For example, "You don't know who the Prime Minister of Zimbabwe is?" Second, look to everyone around you and let them know that this person is completely ignorant. Hey everyone, Sebastian doesn't know who the Prime Minister of Zimbabwe is. Third, you call up the Prime Minister of Zimbabwe and tell him that Sebastian doesn't know who he is, and then laugh really loudly until the ignorant person just leaves in utter shame. If you'd like to ask me a question, just tweet it to my handle @BrookeAlvarez or post it to my Facebook wall.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. Phones are open here, and you can join us with whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, can relationships be repaired after political disagreements that have broken people apart? We started just barely scratching the surface of the story last night, and I said, you know what, Bonnie, we should keep this going. So I want to get into that, but we're still playing some of the audio from today, from the historic first ever full vote of the State House of New Hampshire on the question of should the people be allowed to vote on secession. Not the question of should we secede, but the question of should it go onto the ballot. 323 of the state representatives said, nope, people should not be able to vote on this. And 13
we are
of them,
the gatekeepers.
Yes, 13 of them said, yep, we should let the people vote. And that's what happened today. But we're playing some of the statements, some of the speeches from the floor of the House, just because, as you pointed out, Bonnie, some of this stuff was pretty historic today. This whole day was a historic day, and may it be the beginning of a movement that snowballs into something unstoppable. That would be nice.
Oh, I think that's already begun.
I hope so. I mean, ultimately, it really does depend on what the people of New Hampshire think. And we don't know. Like, we haven't done any polling, and maybe that's something that we should do next. Maybe we should commission a real polling company to start asking the people of New Hampshire questions about this.
Well, I just meant not just in the terms of secession, but in terms of people moving here. Today I talked to a Porcupine real estate agent who told me, oh my God, last year was so difficult because it was the biggest year I've ever had. There were more people than houses I had to sell them.
Yep. Yeah, lots of people move in here because of the Free State Project. We talked about the Free State Project a lot last night when Mark called into the show. So if you missed that discussion, you can go to freetalklive.com. Download archives of the program there. We're going to continue with more of the NHexit hearing that happened today. But first, we go to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Sarah.
So there's an American astronaut in the orbit, and so they're part of the Russian satellite system, I think, and they're planning to leave them behind.
What?
So we have to. Yes, I guess that they had a space system from Russia, so he was a part of the group, but they're planning to leave him behind. I guess because they know that the U.S. supplied the Ukrainians with missiles, and So that's their way of getting like payback. So I think we have to send a capsule to bring him back down on our own, like a backup.
Wow.
So that's the latest.
Yeah, there's a headline about this as of 5 hours ago. So I don't know if that's what's actually going to happen, but that is the threat, I guess, at this time.
If this ends up being the thing that makes the American people say, yeah, we're going to war, I'm going to be so annoyed. It seems like it could...
Time to call it the Space Force.
Yeah, but you know what? Did you see all those Russian the tanks that were going into Kiev? The Ukrainians had enough artillery to blow up several of the Russian tanks, and I think a couple of their generals were killed from the way that it looks. And
you don't know how it looks, Sarah. There's no way to tell who blew up what, whether the video footage is real, whether any of the information coming out of Ukraine or Russia is in any way, verifiable or true. There's just no way to know.
Something one of my most questioning besties noticed was that if you go on Snapchat, you can pull up the world map and you can click on any country and just see random people's stories that they made live for their area. It's really cool. And they closed off Ukraine. So you can't see the average person's snaps anymore in Ukraine on Snapchat.
But you can see certain things. And one of the things that happened this week was apparently back in 2014, Oliver Stone made a great documentary about Ukraine.
What's it called? Ukraine on Fire?
Ukraine on Fire, yeah. I watched about 3/4 of it so far. Really engaging.
Is it really long?
It's not very long.
Okay.
It's typical documentary length. It's totally watchable. It's not overdone or anything. He did a great job on it. And he does all of the interviewing himself in it, and it's absolutely fantastic documentary. Apparently, that's been canceled.
When you say canceled, my understanding is YouTube has banned it?
Yes. So like the various internet outlets are stifling your ability to watch that.
It is on Odyssey.
It is on Odyssey.
Yep, so
that's where I was watching it anyway.
Yeah, so check that out. Ukraine on Fire.
Ukraine on Fire.
Stone.
Totally worth watching.
Thanks, Sarah, for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Yeah, if they don't want you to see it, you really have to wonder why that is.
Yeah, why don't you want me to see that?
And that's really crazy that they would block Ukraine from Snapchat.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so cool because, like, I noticed that you could do that during the fall because I was like, I wonder what if I accidentally did it. And then I was like, oh, I want to see what the fall leaves look like in Maine. And it'll be like random people who just posted pictures of the fall leaves, just things they do in their everyday lives. It could be them making a sandwich in their kitchen just because they decided to make it live, and you can click on any country, and it's really fun to do.
But Snapchat thinks that no, you should only be able to see what's happening through the eyes of the mainstream media in Ukraine, huh?
Right.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. The number, if you want to join the show here, again, thanks, Sarah, for the call, 603-283-6160. We go back to the floor of the State House, and I got to say, I like what Matthew Alistair in our YouTube chat here is saying, because I titled the show tonight, whenever we start the show on the video streams, and YouTube's one of them, I title whatever we're going to start talking about, or at some point what we plan to talk about. And so I put in NHexit fail. And he says, not NHexit fail, NHexit roadblock, which is a much more positive way of looking at things. This is just the beginning, and certainly when more people move here, as you're referring to, Bonnie, with the realtors here, the freedom-loving realtors that are just overwhelmed with numbers of migrants, people coming in here from all across the United States, all around the world, libertarian, anarchist, voluntarist-minded people coming in here, every one of those people has a circle of influence. Every one of those people gets involved, hopefully, in whatever things they're interested in, right? Whether it's playing baseball or a sewing club or going to church or volunteering at the local food kitchen, whatever it is that those people do when they get to New Hampshire to get involved in the community, those are people that are going to make friendships. Those are people that are going to be able to influence people. And already the people of New Hampshire are very independent-minded people. They already have this sort of granite state of mind, if you will, this live free or die, leave me alone kind of mentality. And I don't know what the average person thinks, but Bonnie, you and I have been to some events, and we've spoken to people who aren't libertarian. They're definitely more kind of right-wing types, because those happen to be the events we've attended recently. And we've done outreach for New Hampshire independence at these events, and it's been very well received.
If somebody doesn't automatically say, oh yeah, I support independence, when we talk to them about it at these events, and it's usually right-wingers, like you said, they just need a little talking to, and they get convinced, and then they start being really open to it.
Yeah. I think it's got a bright possibility for actually happening at some point. I think it'll be interesting to actually do some polls. But let's get back into the audio from the floor of the State House, where a bill to allow people to vote on independence was actually heard today, and they tried to table it. They failed to table this thing, which means the discussion and the actual vote on it had to happen. So this is the first guy they bring up to discuss.
We're back to the initial motion of inexpedient to legislate. Chair recognizes Representative Tim Smith.
Let me explain the terminology of the cult here. Inexpedient to legislate means to kill the bill. That's the terminology they use. It's confusing sounding, but that's what they do.
Speaking for the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is the first time I've come up to the microphone this session, and those of you who've been here for a few terms realize that I'm someone who comes up to the microphone a lot. So I hope that you'll appreciate the gravity that it took to get me down here today. Normally I prepare remarks, but not this time. I tried a dozen times to write a speech for this. but I just couldn't do it. It's too personal for too many of us here in the room. It's too personal for me.
He literally says coming up that he is nearly to tears over the fact that this particular piece of legislation exists.
That people might be able to get to make their own choice.
Yeah. So we'll play more of this nationalist scum on the way here. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about independence for not just New Hampshire, but anywhere that wants it. I think that whether it's New Hampshire or Texas or California that does this thing first, someone is going to go And I think it is going to happen before the complete failure of the United States. Because even though we are in the final days of the empire, they could stretch this thing out for quite a while. Even in Venezuela, where the people have been hungry for years, and they've been on the cusp of a revolution, it still hasn't happened there. So they've got their tricks up their sleeve here in the U.S. And the best thing we can do is, as Matt Santanastasso puts it, one of the state reps in this video, is get out in front of it. Let's try to avoid the destruction of this situation that the U.S. government is in, that just keeps getting worse, with trillions, $30 trillion now in national debt. And that's going to be, 40 by the end of the year or something like that? I mean, it just keeps going up, and it just keeps going up faster.
They just keep running the printers like crazy.
Oh, yeah. And they're not going to slow that down. I know you wanted to talk about inflation tonight. If we get the chance, we'll do that. But I am playing some of the audio from today. We were at the State House, Bonnie and I, and some other great activists who came out today to show support for the brave 13 state representatives who dared to actually vote to allow the people to vote on the question of peaceful secession. That's what happened today. 323 voted against it. And so this is the statement made by one of the statists, one of the nationalists on the floor of the State House. He's a representative named Tim Smith. I'd never heard of him before, but it's true of most of these reps. There's 400 of them.
I'm a direct descendant of Captain John Smith, who fought alongside George Washington. That guy.
There's a picture.
To establish the United States as an independent nation. I'm also a direct descendant of Sergeant Garrett Preston Smith, who fought in the U.S. Civil War to keep the United States one nation, undivided. A lot of folks in this room have similar stories from
Matt's rolling his eyes already. He's just getting started.
From their own families, have similar lineages that they look back upon. And even if you don't, we have a communal heritage here in New Hampshire with a unique place in American history.
I just hated that term so much. When he said that, I was just like yelling to Alu, like, what does that even mean? I've never heard the term. We have a communal heritage. No, we don't.
Well, that's something a Democrat would say.
And that is something a Democrat was saying. It's literally just so weird to say.
I think I hit the wrong button, so I'm not sure where we're at here. Let me check this.
That liberated the Confederate capital city of Richmond, Virginia.
Whatever he said.
Is downstairs on the first floor of this building. New Hampshire liberated the Confederate capital and worked when Jefferson Davis and his little cohort ran fleeing with their tails between their legs, they were running from New Hampshire soldiers. And I am proud of that heritage and legacy that we all carry with us here in this chamber. And every day,
people died. Therefore, we must continue the Union.
I am proud that...
I'm pretty sure that's not how that went either.
I mean, even if it is how it went, I'm proud that my ancestors bullied some other people when they wanted to make a decision for themselves.
Right, when they wanted to secede from the Union.
Yep.
Right.
That we carry on as an elected official in this state. And all of this transcends party, this transcends ideology. We are Americans, and we are from New Hampshire.
I'm not an American.
Fast forward.
That's Doug Stanhope said in a famous stand-up bit that he did one time that he's no more an American than he is an Aries or an uncle.
An Aries.
He just showed up, and that's what you called him.
Mm. Well, Mexicans are also Americans.
Or Canadians.
Yeah.
Forward a few more decades. When I first got elected in 2012, there were three things.
This guy just touches on all the statist, all the nationalist notes here, though. In this
jingoism.
Yeah. Absolutely never thought that I would vote on during my tenure in the New Hampshire House.
I like
Articles of impeachment, and we came close a couple of years ago. We had a bill called it was a bill of address. It was the first step in an impeachment proceeding. So there was number one. Number two was formal disciplinary actions against members of the House. Unfortunately, we had that a couple of years ago, so that was number two. And here we are with number three, articles of secession. Well, it's almost impossible to even talk about this without breaking down. I mean, I apologize.
Oh my gosh.
This was my favorite part of his speech, where he's so shocked that this could even happen. He didn't think that in his entire career, and he's a multi-term rep, as he mentioned earlier, that this could ever happen. And
that's thanks to the Free State the Free State movement.
Indeed, and the Democrats hate the Free Staters.
They hate them.
They hate them.
I'm proud of that.
They are freaking out over the Free State. We read one of their breathless, ridiculous articles, their hit pieces they are writing about us regularly now. We read one of them last night.
This guy sounds convinced of his own diatribe, though.
Sure, of course he is. Why wouldn't he be?
Either that or he's just a liar.
They're true believers.
And he's a great actor.
No, these guys are true believers in the state. This is a church. And
this is what they were raised to believe, and this is what they still believe.
And Mike Sylvia and Matt Santanastasso and the other guys that put this bill forward, the heroic ladies, there's one lady that voted for it as well, the other guys that voted for it. These guys are the heretics in this church, and they want to burn them at the stake.
For my composure, Mr. Speaker. I am close to tears right now because this is such a deeply personal issue. You know, we have this legislation in front of us. It is a bill to destroy the United States.
No,
it's not. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to scream in the meeting today, and they weren't letting us clap or anything. So.
The rule is you cannot show emotion in the gallery, or they'll kick you out.
Oh,
Are
you
serious?
Goodness.
Yeah. He'll say it, not this guy, but the Speaker of the House. But what were you going to say about breaking up the United States?
It's so ridiculous to think that one state can't leave without destroying the United States. New Hampshire could leave and the United States could go on. They would just have 49 states. It's not that big of a deal.
Or is he admitting that the United States, the Union, is so fragile that if one state is to leave, that is the end?
Everyone else might leave.
It spells disaster for the entire thing. And maybe that is the case.
And we are a donor state, so maybe it is kind of disastrous for the federal government if we leave.
Good point.
I mean, New Hampshire's a pretty small state.
Hey, donor's a donor.
Yeah, that's true. They can always print more money.
That's true.
We stand in the shadow, literally, of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington.
Yeah, my least favorite people.
Tyrants.
And we are considering legislation to take a star off of that flag. Every single one of us stood for the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem this morning.
Under duress.
Oh, my God.
Probably most of them.
I hope not every one of them did, but I bet they did.
I thought the same thing. I was even the Democrats stood for the... Whatever.
Why wouldn't they? They all are true believers in the United States. Whatever they disagree on as issues, and that's the point he's making, and he's right about it. The supermajority of the people in that room are total statists. They, through and through, believe in the Union, and they will never change their minds.
And a lot of them are just brainwash victims.
Sure.
That's what they know. It's all they know.
And but you're never going to be able to unbrainwash them. A lot of these guys are in their 60s and their 70s, and they're going to die with this belief
How old is this guy?
system. He's pretty young. I'm going to say he's probably 50-ish. We'll continue here with this total statist statement here during the discussion on the floor of the New Hampshire State House of the New Hampshire Exit Amendment, the proposed constitutional amendment. And we'll continue. Your calls and thoughts are also welcome. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Ukrainian Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented civilian evacuations today. Civilians were able to flee through some humanitarian corridors elsewhere in Ukraine, but Mariupol has been without water and electricity for days, and the Red Cross says people have started to attack each other for food. Matt Fry of Britain's Channel 4 News is in western Ukraine and says the attack on Mariupol is right out of the Russian military playbook.
They shell the residential part of a city, so practically most of it. They shell the hospitals so that the population has nowhere to go when they're wounded. And then they open up an exit of the city so that the population is siphoned off in these so-called humanitarian corridors, which have been promised but have not yet taken place.
The Russian embassy in London, meanwhile, sparked fury by claiming entirely falsely on Twitter that a pregnant woman seen injured in yesterday's attack on a Mariupol maternity hospital was an actress made up for the part. Twitter has not yet banned the embassy's account. The Ukrainians say 3 people were killed in that attack, including a child. Talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers in southern Turkey made no appreciable progress today. At the White House,
if Russia does conduct a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine, there will not be a military response from the United States.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What we're saying right now is they have the capacity and the capabilities.
President Biden's press secretary Jen Psaki dodged questions after she warned on Wednesday night that Russia might launch a chemical weapons attack on Ukraine.
We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here.
The United Nations says more than 2.3 million people have now fled the violence, and at least 516 people have been killed in the conflict so far. From FSN's bureau at the UN in New York, Sarah Walton reports.
The UN Human Rights Office says more than 23 children are included in the fatalities list, but most of those killed have been adult men. 908 people have also been injured. Most casualties have been caused by explosive weapons, including shelling by heavy artillery, missiles and airstrikes. The UN says the actual death toll is likely to be much higher because of the difficulty in receiving information from areas of the country where there is intense fighting, such as the cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
The day's other headlines: Vice President Kamala Harris in Poland voiced support for war crimes investigations in Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire owner of Chelsea Football Club, was sanctioned by the British government, one of 7 oligarchs targeted. And US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join the program. Just dial in here at 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian, Matt,
and Bonnie.
Again, that number is 603-283-6160. We're playing for you some audio from the State House floor today, where the historic piece of legislation, the constitutional amendment known as CACR 32, the NHexit, the Peaceful Secession Amendment that would allow, if it were passed, and it didn't, but if it were passed, it would have gone on the ballot as a question for the people to answer, whether the people of New Hampshire support peaceful independence from the United States. It didn't even make it with 20 votes. It got 13 votes in favor of it out of 360-some people that were in attendance today. I think it was 366.
I was hoping to see 60 people. That's what I was thinking. And then when I saw 13 go up, I was like, whoa.
60 would have been amazing. But we're going to get back into that coming up here. First, Jack is on the line in Washington State. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Jack.
Okay. I'm a big fan. I listen a lot, as you guys maybe know. But I'm a devil's advocate here. So if you secede from the United States government, what about your mail, your trash, your electricity, your water? And mankind is corrupt. Individual people are corrupt. So
yes, well, let's slow down. You've brought up like 5 or 6 things right there.
right.
Mankind is corrupt, which is exactly why we don't need them in positions of power.
Yeah, if they're all serving their own
Individually.
interests, chaotic order ensues, and it is a way better system than a few corrupt people controlling everyone else.
Yeah, so the more power individuals have, the worse they tend to behave. And so getting out of the union would reduce the amount of power. Still, the state reps would still have power. Then they'd be, national reps at that point. And so that's a problem. But at least here, we know where they live, and there are 400 of them. So it's a much more representative body than the U.S. federal government. But what you said, what was it that you said in the beginning there about
trash
pickup? The federal government doesn't do that.
Who's famous for trash running the trash back in the day? The mob.
Okay. I don't know what that has to do with the federal government. Here in Keene,
power given to individual things, as small as picking up trash.
Here in Keene, New Hampshire, there is no government trash pickup.
Yeah, I've never heard of a federal trash pickup.
Well, I think the deal was when the mob was running trash, I think it was because there were politicians giving permits to do so only to certain families. And those politicians were paid off by the mafia guys to issue those permits.
Was that in New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in a lot of places.
Yeah, we don't even have city trash pickup, dude.
Dude, well, give it 20 years of freedom in New Hampshire, and you have a corrupt dude running the trash, the mail, the electricity.
Why would that be the case? We have no city trash pickup. Why would they all of a sudden create city trash pickup?
Years into the system.
Huh?
People are the corrupt ones, or the individuals.
New Hampshire has been around for a couple hundred years now, right?
If he knows anything about competition, it just destroys what he's saying.
22 years old, Bonnie. It is tough to listen to you.
Huh?
He said I'm 22. I'm not. I'm 25.
All right, well, goodbye then. The number here is 603-283-6160.
Watch anything else.
But I think the concerns he has are concerns a lot of people have, but they don't really make any sense. They're illogical concerns. I am not 22 years old. I'm 47.
Neither am I.
And I've been around the block. 20, whatever. Whatever, Bonnie. Just sit there and be 22. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, competition is stifled. The reason the mob the reason the mob controlled garbage in New York City and other places in the 70s and 80s and so forth, and probably still today, is because they were paying off politicians to give them permits.
It was a restricted market.
It was a restricted market. Yeah. That's not a free market.
Same thing with cabbies, where they have a restricted number of cabs.
Correct. And another way to look at it, there was a man named Lysander Spooner, which a lot of libertarians probably know that name. He was a guy who lived in northern Massachusetts back in the mid-1800s, and he started a company to handle mail called the American Letter Mail Company.
And they told him, you can't do that.
They told him he couldn't do that.
We're going to outlaw that.
And you know what? When he was doing it, he was doing it better, faster, more reliable, and cheaper than the government was doing it. And they put him out of business.
Yep. Well, and what we have here in Keene is competition among trash companies. And I don't see any reason why that would ever change. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
You can start one yourself. You can move to Keene and grab a pickup truck and drive around and pick up people.
There's no permit.
No, there's no permit.
That's a great point. The number here is 603-283-6160. We're going to continue with more from this total nationalist state representative speaking, saying he's going to cry. He's almost in tears over the fact that there's actually a proposed amendment to allow the people to vote on their political futures and possibly leave the United States. So let me continue here. I think his name was Tim Smith.
Morning. Every single one of us took the same oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And we have legislation now seeking to destroy the Constitution of the United States.
Again, I think you made this point earlier, Bonnie. This does not touch the Constitution of the United States.
And as Lysander Spooner once said, the Constitution, whether it be one thing or another, is either allowed the government we currently have or has been powerless to prevent it. Either way, it is unfit to exist. So if it could be destroyed, it probably should be destroyed.
Oh, yeah. I would vote for it to be destroyed if
not
that was
that's the goal or the outcome that would occur from this whole thing anyway.
This is simply a question on should the people of New Hampshire be able to vote on secession. That does not destroy the Constitution.
It's ridiculous.
It simply uses the Constitution of New Hampshire, which has in it very clear provisions about the right to revolution, where if government's gone too far, you have the right to reform or abolish it. And that is our ticket out of this thing. And as was pointed out later on in some of the other speeches in this particular day, the U.S. Constitution does not prohibit the peaceful leaving of the Union. there's a list of things. I think it's Article 1, Section 10, if I recall correctly. There's a list of prohibitions of things states cannot do under the U.S. Constitution. Guess what's not in there?
Leaving?
That's right. It's not there. Which means that under the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, that right is reserved to the states.
And the state has that right. The state has called out the reservation of that right through this right of revolt.
And, I'm always thinking, because Brody DeShays loves to say...
That's a state rep who's pro-union.
Yeah, he always loves to say, only the federal government has the power to redraw lines.
The boundaries, yeah.
The boundaries. And I always think it's ridiculous because, we could still say we left and then they can redraw the boundaries.
Yeah, Brody, I think that guy's full of it too because when I heard him speak in January, he's a tool if there ever was a tool. Yeah. I see that guy's looking for a job in the CIA if I ever saw a guy looking for a job in the CIA. But what he said was that he consulted many constitutional scholars, both here in America and abroad. I'm like, why would you be consulting constitutional scholars abroad?
Well, Bonnie looked into one of the ones that he mentioned.
The only one he named.
And what did you learn?
He wrote a book on the fact that he believes that the Second Amendment doesn't actually give citizens the right to bear arms.
So Brody DeShays,
a
Republican who sounds like a swamp monster if there ever was, and the kid's only like 23 years old.
He is
right?
literally 23 years old, not just like 23.
He talks like a longtime politician, like he was bred for politics. His
daddy's a politician.
He sounds like a dirtbag, like the worst kind of politician.
But the fact is, his constitutional expert doesn't believe in the Second Amendment,
and
so
he's a Republican.
You could just throw this guy right out the window.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Going on.
That is beyond shameful, it is beyond disgraceful, and it is a stain on the proud history of the state that we even have to entertain this being introduced through the administrative process, never mind, getting far enough along to have a vote on the floor of the House.
But you do have to entertain it, because here in New Hampshire, every single bill gets a hearing.
This guy is crying, isn't he?
In the State House.
Oh boy, is he whining.
Too bad, bro.
It was really close to the textbook definition under Title 18 of the U.S. Code. It was really close to the definition of advocating overthrow of the U.S. government. When
No,
the
it's not. It's not even close to that. There would have to be some kind of language in there saying, and then we're going to overthrow the United States government and make the United States government not exist anymore, but that's not the case. It's just we don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, anyone who actually read the bill, which is like 2 sentences.
None of them probably did.
No. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. You can take control of the airwaves here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're sharing with you some audio from the State House floor of the ridiculous arguments that the statists were making today in regards to why the people of New Hampshire should not be allowed to make a decision for themselves, should not be allowed to decide whether or not to continue in the relationship with the abusive relationship with the federal government gang, to peacefully say goodbye. That's the proposal that was on the table today. 323 votes were against that proposal, and 13 were in favor of letting the people decide. And so that's what we're playing here is audio from one of the state reps who took the floor to pander to the flag, pander to the military, pander to saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I have no idea what that beep was. But to pander to those things today and try to whip the state reps into continuing the union. And so we're going to continue with what he had to say on the floor. His name's Tim Smith.
CR was introduced. When co-sponsors signed on, it was really close to seditious conspiracy. A vote for this is really close to the federal definition of treason. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, I heard booing.
The House will be...
So booing got captured. Maybe it was us.
I don't know. I did boo at least
booed a lot.
on one occasion.
You know, he's got the facial hair and he's kind of bulky. He looks kind of a man's man, but I don't see him wearing his ovaries on the outside at all. He seems kind of
pussy.
And it's weird because he's a Democrat. I just thought it was so shocking that the way he's talking and the way he looks even.
I agree.
In order.
That's loud. Sorry. All right.
Does the member yield to questions? Member does not yield.
Nope, won't take a question.
The chair recognizes Santa Natasto to speak against the committee report.
Santa Nastasso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the United States is not going to outlast the sun. One day it will end. If you declared in 1985 that the Soviet Union would be completely gone in the next decade, you would be considered a crazy person.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, this is a speech by one of the sponsors. So Matt Santonastasso was one of the sponsors.
The original sponsor, right?
No, Mike Sylvia was the main sponsor, but Matt was definitely like the first state rep that really kind of took a serious interest in this.
Yep.
And he wanted to have somebody with more experience be the main sponsor because it's his first term. He still doesn't even know all the rules, right? There's a bunch of stupid rules that these people follow in this bizarre state religion. So it helps to have somebody that's been through the ringer on this. And so Mike Sylvia stepped up and took the lead on this. And you'll hear from him a little bit later on.
But in 91, it was gone. The American religion is the U.S. dollar. Our biggest export, inflation. Few understand the privilege we have had to create money from nothing and export our inflation, living on the backs of the rest of the world. When the world stops subsidizing the dollar, the federal government loses its ability to dictate the state's behavior, unable to bribe them with worthless money, and quickly the union will fall apart. This national divorce is going to happen. It's inevitable, and we have an opportunity to get ahead of it. The historic motion CR...
But unfortunately, politicians aren't very good at getting ahead of anything. These are people who...
They want safe bets on every single thing.
They're cowards, and they want to feel popular, like you were talking about with this other guy, Deshays. They want to feel popular, and if they don't feel like this issue is popular, they're going to oppose it until the moment when they realize that there's actually support for this. And right now, many of these politicians are saying, well, no one contacted me. No one contacted me in favor of this thing. Well, of course, almost no one contacted you against it either.
Right.
But
they're playing it safe.
Because most people don't even know this exists. Most people don't know this is an issue. It hasn't gotten any significant media attention. But as soon as these politicians find out there's a large amount of people that want to see independence,
suddenly they're on board.
All of a sudden, they're going to say, I always agreed with you guys.
Yep.
You guys are right.
CACR 32 calls on for a vote by the New Hampshire citizens on the question of state independence. At the committee hearing, many objections were raised, all which were answered by the pro-independent citizens who testified, and some which I'll address again today. The biggest objection alleged is this whole effort is treasonous, that any moves towards independence for any state is illegal and unconstitutional. If it were unconstitutional for a state to secede, this prohibition would have been included in the original Constitution per the 9th and 10th Amendments. Since it's not specifically included there, there is no such restriction, and that power is left to the states. Additionally, everything states are not permitted to do are listed in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. It does not mention anything about separating from the Union, therefore it is not prohibited.
Boom.
And to those who say that per the Articles of Confederation,
check it for yourself, by the way,
this union is perpetual and that this concept was adopted by the U.S. Constitution.
If you don't believe him, check it for yourself. There's a whole list of things the states can't do, and leaving is not one of them.
The other thing that people should check for themselves is Article 14, Section 3, because Brody Deshays likes to use that to say, oh, if you guys vote for this, reps, you could be brought under charges for insurrection or something like that, when that's nothing remotely close to what that section says. I just completely destroyed that in my article about him, but then today it just came back up toting the same line when it doesn't even, it absolutely has nothing to do with that at all. It says you can't become a rep if you've ever went to war against the United States in the past. Has nothing to do with you can't vote about secession, or you can't vote to let the people decide if they want to secede. You can't vote to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot without being brought up on federal charges. He's just lying and threatening people.
Yeah, he's trying to intimidate them. And look, let's see. Where are the charges? They're going to bring them, right? Because
any minute now.
Yeah. I mean, if this comes around to they've introduced the bill a second time, which they're going to do, I'm sure, at some point. I hope they will. They put this thing through a second time. Are they still going to be able to claim, oh, you guys could get charged? Well, why wouldn't they charge now? See, why wouldn't they charge when there's only 13 people who are in favor of this? Because if that's indeed what is going to happen,
that'd be low-hanging fruit for them.
You go after them now when there's only 13 of them. You don't wait. The federal government, if they're going to charge somebody with treason, isn't going to wait until there's 300.
Right.
Because then it's like too popular. Then it's going to look really bad if they charge us. But if they go after these 13 stragglers, then surely they can bring them up on these charges.
Free staters and such.
They're not going to because they can't. Because this is just a discussion.
That's
on
not to say they wouldn't love to. There's power junkie nutcases all over Washington, D.C. who would love to get a bite.
They're not gonna though. They're not going to. We're going to continue.
Dirtbags. We ask, has there ever been in history a union that was undissolvable? The federal government often supports independence movements in other nations. Is the U.S. the only perpetual nation in the history of the world? Is there truly nothing the federal government could do that would allow a state to declare independence?
Yeah, that is an important question as well. For all these state reps who are in favor of continuing with the union, but at the same time may be able to identify the federal government going too far on many different issues. Because you talk individually to a lot of these people, they know that the feds are bad news in a lot of ways. One lady, her husband went to prison for 5 years. Her name's Susan DeLemus. Her husband was Jerry DeLemus. He was one of the guys that went down to the what was
Bundy
it called?
Ranch.
Bundy Ranch. Thank you for that. Yeah. He went to the Bundy Ranch, and he was one of the few that actually took a guilty plea. The rest of them went not guilty, and the juries found him not guilty, but he took a guilty plea, so he went to prison. And she said she told Alu Axelman from the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence that she supports this bill.
And that she was going to vote for it to pass in the committee.
And she didn't.
And then she didn't. Then she said, oh, my bad, I was scared, and I'm going to vote for it this time.
And she
once
didn't.
again, she didn't.
Yeah.
Some of these people are just straight up liars.
Yeah. Ridiculous. And I mean, her husband was imprisoned for 5 years.
Yeah, no backbone.
So what are you going to do?
Even if this move towards independence is illegal or treasonous, which I do not believe it to be, it would be no more so than the one in 1776, which is celebrated by everybody in this body. To quote from the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whatever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem the most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
Words that are still true to this very day.
Human nature's a thing.
Yeah. The more things change, the more they remain the same. There's more coming up here. Hour number 3 is on the way. You can share your thoughts as the NHexit amendment has failed its first attempt at the State House of New Hampshire. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Ukrainian Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented civilian evacuations today. Civilians were able to flee through some humanitarian corridors elsewhere in Ukraine, but Mariupol has been without water and electricity for days, and the Red Cross says people have started to attack each other for food. Matt Fry of Britain's Channel 4 News is in Western Ukraine and says the attack on Mariupol is right out of the Russian military playbook.
They shell the residential part of a city, so practically most of it. They shell the hospitals so that the population has nowhere to go when they're wounded. And then they open up an exit of the city so that the population is siphoned off in these so-called humanitarian corridors, which have been promised but have not yet taken place.
The Russian embassy in London, meanwhile, sparked fury by claiming entirely falsely on Twitter that a pregnant woman seen injured in yesterday's attack on a Mariupol maternity hospital was an actress made up for the part. Twitter has not yet banned the embassy's account. The Ukrainians say 3 people were killed in that attack, including a child. Talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers in southern Turkey made no appreciable progress today. At the White House,
if Russia does conduct a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine, there will not be a military response from the United States.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What we're saying right now is they have the capacity and the capabilities.
President Biden's press secretary Jen Psaki dodged questions after she warned on Wednesday night that Russia might launch a chemical weapons attack on Ukraine.
We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here.
The United Nations says more than 2.3 million people have now fled the violence, and at least 516 people have been killed in the conflict so far. From FSN's bureau at the UN in New York, Sarah Walton reports.
The UN Human Rights Office says more than 23 children are included in the fatalities list, but most of those killed have been adult men. 908 people have also been injured. Most casualties have been caused by explosive weapons, including shelling by heavy artillery, missiles and airstrikes. The UN says the actual death toll is likely to be much higher because of the difficulty in receiving information from areas of the country where there is intense fighting, such as the cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
The day's other headlines: Vice President Kamala Harris in Poland voiced support for war crimes investigations in Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire owner of Chelsea Football Club, was sanctioned by the British government, one of 7 oligarchs targeted. And US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the astonishing discovery announced earlier this week of Endurance, the ship used by polar explorer Ernest Shackleton that sank in the waters off Antarctica in 1915. 107 years later, the vessel was located in remarkable condition by a team that used undersea drones and a host of other new technologies to scour the inhospitable seabed of the Weddell Sea, east of the Antarctic Peninsula. Historian Dan Snow helmed the search.
We were searching the seabed for a month, and eventually, as time was running out into the last few days, they came across a big acoustic signature using sonar pulses that they shoot down at the seabed. They then turned the cameras on their underwater vehicle and sent it to go and look at this signature, and it turned out to be Endurance. And it turned out to be Endurance in amazing condition. I don't know if people have seen the images today, but they are available widely, and it's the wood looks in perfect condition. There's the gold lettering of Endurance written on the stern. It is magnificent. It's the best preserved wooden shipwreck probably anywhere in the world.
He says it's in that kind of condition because there are no creatures in the Waddle that feed on wood, because there isn't any wood on the ocean floor apart from endurance. It was discovered 100 years to the day after Shackleton was buried on the island of South Georgia after he died aboard another ship he was using to explore the South Atlantic. The main news again, the Red Cross is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the Black Sea port of Mariupol, where Russian shelling again prevented Ukrainian civilians from evacuating today. Face-to-face talks between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers made little progress in southern Turkey, and US inflation hit 7.9% in February, a fresh 40-year high. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
It's now been 7 days since a group of hikers went missing in Maine's Acadia National Park, but rescue crews there are still holding out hope of finding them alive. Autistic reporter Michael Falk is on the scene there. Michael.
Hello, Brooke. My socks got wet. That cameraman gave me new socks. I am fine.
That's good, Michael, but what's the situation there?
The names of the hikers are Casey Allman, Brian Emery, Ashley Thorson. The hikers were last seen 174 hours ago. Since then, 3 very big storms have hit here. There's a 1.24% chance that all of the hikers are alive. Why are you looking for the hikers?
Well, we're still hopeful that we might be able to find them. There's been a break in the weather, so we're hoping that...
Over the past 7 days, the average high temperature has been 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the past 7 days, the average low temperature has been 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. So we did another sweep of the park from the air, but we didn't see anything.
Without shelter, the human body can withstand temperatures this cold for a maximum of 3 hours. Is there shelter in the forest for the hikers?
Not that we know of.
They are frozen.
Well, we like
Shh. This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, kicking off the third hour of the program. The number for you to join us here, 603-283-6160. Ian, Matt, and Bonnie in the studio here tonight. Again, the number 603-283-6160. We've been focused pretty exclusively tonight, although the phones are open as always, on the New Hampshire exit bill, the constitutional amendment, the historic constitutional amendment that had its first and only vote in the state house today. The full house heard this bill. They tried to avoid it. They tried to table it right away. And when somebody makes a motion to table a bill, it cuts off any discussion. And then they have to vote on whether or not to table the bill. If they had voted to table the bill, there would have been zero discussion on it. It would have been, quote-unquote, put on the table, and they would have moved on. And that's where it would have sat. It probably would not have been removed from the table at any point during the rest of the session, and it would have died on the table. But it didn't die on the table. It didn't get put on the table because they could not succeed at that particular motion, although subsequently the motion was to kill the bill, and that did pass 323 to 13. But those 13 brave men and women that were willing to vote for this thing, kudos to them. There's a list over at the Liberty Block at libertyblock.com for those that want to see who it was. I think they deserve a round of applause, a thank you. I hope that a lot of the people that were the activists in this case will reach out directly to them and thank them for doing this, because it was an act of political courage.
Absolutely. Something
that very rarely happens with politicians. But we're going to continue here with just a little bit, and then we're going to just take a break, because we could keep going with this footage from today, and it would probably take the rest of the show, but I'm going to put some of it off probably till tomorrow night. But I do want to finish Matt Santanastaso's speech, since we are kind of in the middle of it here. He's one of the sponsors of the bill, responding after a total arch statist Democrat got up and pandered to all the nationalist things like the Pledge of Allegiance and the military and the Constitution, and saying that we're going to destroy the Constitution and destroy the United States by peacefully saying goodbye, which is, of course, all ridiculous hyperbole. But we go on here. This is what Matt had to say. He was just reading a section of the Declaration of Independence, and, of course, it all still applies to this day.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. To assert that those who wrote this document went on to create a government that contradicts the principles on which it was founded is ludicrous and absurd. Returning to the alleged violation of the Constitution, I'm surprised that some are troubled by violations of the U.S. Constitution. It is not even possible to list all the violations on the other party of this document, making this contract void in the perspective of any contract law that has ever existed. There is no evidence that the federal government is bound by the Constitution. Does our Constitution allow an intelligence community, which, to quote the current Senate Majority Leader, has 6 ways a Sunday of getting back at you if you cross them, that works so hard to undermine the 45th president of this country and to assure the election of our current president? Those who oppose this idea because in so many words the Civil War settled that issue, we must assume that had the colonists lost the war in the 1700s, that their words would not have been universally and everlasting true, that their veracity depended upon winning a war. Do we believe that other conquering nations have a right to forcefully rule over the conquered because might makes right for lack of power?
No, it's really all about fear. That's what the point about the Civil War is. It's just about fear. It's about, oh my God, the federal government killed people over this before. They'll kill us again.
Yep. Somebody actually said that. Well, it was Brody DeShays. Wasn't he one of the people that said they'll never be able to withstand their military might or something like that?
I'm not sure.
Last hearing.
I wouldn't be surprised because he also says that it was answered in the Civil War.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And that's just sort of a quick way of just blowing off the entire issue.
Right.
People.
Do we surrender the principle of self-determination for a state any more or less than the individual? Some oppose this because governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. We are at a point beyond this. Does anyone believe that the current powers of the federal government over every aspect of our lives, from toilets to light bulbs, from taxation to vaccine mandates, from bankrupt Social Security to our $30 trillion deficit, the war on drugs, border patrols within 100 miles national borders, how children are taught in our schools, and arbitrary no-fly lists are just light and transient causes? A federal government with approximately 400 agencies and more laws, federal crimes, and rules than anyone in the country is even aware of. A federal government that has sent our sons and daughters to foreign countries and involved them in countless foreign entanglements, often leading to their deaths. For those who label this effort un-American, referring back to the founding Declaration of Independence, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. How could one possibly argue that the words of the Declaration of Independence were un-American?
How much more despotic does it have to get for these people? Many of whom, on an individual basis, if you were to talk to them, would agree with you. The federal government is too big. They're out of control. But they just want to keep electing people to it. They just want to keep on playing their game. And this is the only sane way forward. This is the only sane way out of this insane relationship between the states and this federal gang. And there's just no better way than this. And when these people will be able to see it, I don't know. I suggested on social media earlier tonight that these people, the so-called liberty reps who refused to vote for this bill and were too afraid to do so, I think they should be replaced. Somebody else said, Shellbanger on Twitter said, oh, no, well, we should just convince them.
How they already ought to know better than that.
Yeah. How am I supposed to convince someone to have a spine?
You can't do that.
I just don't think I can.
It makes me kind of sick because what the lady I've been talking about today that told me she wasn't going to vote for it because she personally doesn't agree, so she doesn't think that the New Hampshire citizens get to have a say because she personally doesn't agree. Mm-hmm. It makes me really sick because I knocked on doors for her for Young Americans for Liberty, and the whole time I was like, I just don't know enough about these people. Like, I feel like these people are just Republicans, and they just give you they give you your literature. They're like, go knock on these doors, and every day they're changing. So I feel just like I feel so ashamed almost to have even knocked on doors for her, but not Matt Santonastasso.
And you did knock on doors for him?
Yeah.
Nice.
I actually tried harder whenever I was knocking on doors for him.
Good job, Hon.
For concerns such as what is the plan or how we will survive, there are plenty of examples of smaller countries in the world that function independently and even thrive. But also, it would be absurd to just tell a battered wife that she can't divorce until she has a plan. This is not a fringe idea. Hashtag national divorce trends on the internet. There's a similar movement in California which will flourish again when Republicans take the U.S. Congress later this year. There's an independence movement in Texas and several movements to move borders of cities as in Atlanta or the states as in the Greater Idaho movement. Hollywood star Ron Perlman recently stated, It's time that every state that would elect Republicans to represent them and all the rest of us separate. You don't want to live in my world, and I certainly don't want to live in yours. Sarah Silverman has endorsed national divorce. Ted Cruz and Congressman Massey and Green have spoken in support of national divorce. Media personalities including Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Tim Pool, and others have spoken in support of splitting up the union before it's too late. This bill has no one in the chamber voting directly on secession. It asks them only to allow those we purport to represent to make their own decisions. If our state was currently independent, would we choose to join the union in the situation that it's in?
That's a really great point, and it's one that deserves more attention, and these state reps should be asked that question directly, is if New Hampshire were independent already, and then somebody said, hey, how'd you guys like to join the United States? Come on in, the water's fine, right? Like, you want to join this warmongering?
Most of that water is pee, I think, so no.
Insane, boiling water, hot frog situation. No one sane would want to step into this organization.
The answer is obviously no, so we should allow our citizens the opportunity to determine their own future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That speech was just so much better, worlds better than the first guy who was just saying, emotion, 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 I'm going to cry, emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're going to move on to relationships. I want to get into this story that you brought in, Bonnie, to discuss, because a lot of people have had relationships go south within the last few years, whether it be over...
Yeah, we've had calls about it, actually,
yeah, we have.
Asking for advice, so this
whether
is a great
it be
article.
Over Trump derangement syndrome or COVID derangement or whatever. The number here is 603-283-6160. Can those relationships be repaired, and more importantly, should they?
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. If you want to join us here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Want to say thank you, by the way, to Nathan, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS Patreon. Nathan is silver level, which means that he is supporting us for as little as $5 a month, and really appreciate the support. It helps us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live, getting us on more great radio stations around the country, bringing new listeners on board and exposing them to the ideas of freedom. So if that's valuable to you, we're talking about independence a lot tonight, and a lot in over the years. We've been big fans of secession, peaceful secession, of course. And so you can comment on anything you want. And again, thank you to Nathan for helping us out here. Go to amps.freetalklive.com to support the show and get some cool perks, get some benefits over at amps.freetalklive.com. All right, Bonnie, we started just barely the story that you had to share with us last night about people's relationships. I think it was Foundation for Economic Education.
Yes.
Is that right? Talking about people burning bridges over politics.
Which, by the way, the listener from Washington that called in should read the Foundation for Economic Education more often, because he, even though I may be like 22 or whatever he said, he doesn't know anything about economics.
Yeah, I don't remember what he said about economics, but just the whole if the government took over trash kind of thing? Gotcha. So what is this story about? Let's recap for listeners just tuning in.
The title is Relationship Counseling for Politics: How to Fix Relationships That Have Been Broken by Political Disagreement. And it says, if you want to rebuild a healthy and thriving relationship damaged by political discord, these tips can help get you there.
I'm just going to say right now, I'm skeptical that it is a healthy relationship to be in a relationship with someone who wants you dead.
Generally good advice right there, probably.
Now, they're not going to say that. That's not what they believe in their mind. But when you get into these issues and you narrow them down to the point where it comes down to the non-aggression principle, as it always does with libertarians, which is the idea that it's not okay to use aggressive force to achieve your political or your social goals. And when it comes down to it, the status of the world, the Republicans, the Democrats, most of them, they believe it is okay to use force to achieve their vision for society. And if that means that the force has to be used on you, well, sorry. You're going to get run over by the tanks or whatever it is that is going to happen. They themselves will not point the gun at your head. They're your friend. But they're totally fine if the police do it to you because you're breaking the law. And if you're breaking the law, if you're not going along with their new program or whatever it is that they want to shove down your throat, then somebody's going to have to enforce it on you. And so I think that's what breaks up a lot of relationships as far as libertarians are concerned, because they come to the conclusion that the people that they loved or thought were their friends or their family members who cared about them actually put politics over their personal relationships, and they really don't care about you. Because if you cared about somebody, you wouldn't want to see them hurt, right? You wouldn't want to see them go to prison if they haven't harmed anybody else. But in these cases, these people absolutely do want to see you go to prison because you don't agree with them.
What you're talking about is just why actual principles are so important, because people think that they support something that they're voting on because of their principle, but really it's just people can sell all these different things you're voting on for you, and really all it is a bullet to your friend who disagrees with it, and they're pointing bullets at you. And if you just stood on your principles, then you would be able to, instead of listening to whatever the politician said you should vote for to make you a good person, you would know what would make you a good person, because you would be voting via principle instead of the topic of the day.
Well, and there just aren't enough people who have principles, number one, which is one of the reasons why principled, liberty-loving people are moving to New Hampshire, so we can actually have a community of people who respect each other and respect their choices and their freedom to have whatever beliefs they want, so long as they don't bring harm to other human beings. Mm-hmm. And I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that you should be nasty to the statists out there. I think we should be the good people. It's hard
not to.
I get that, and I know you had a tough time today, Bonnie, with this state rep.
But I was great for my anger issues.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to blow up on her.
I was about to, but I didn't. I ate my sandwich in 3 seconds and then I left.
Yeah. But I don't think you should be nasty to them. I think we should be the good. We should be the good examples, right? And be friendly with them and hope that we can persuade them to change their mind. So I'm not saying cut off communication, but I don't know if it's worth repairing relationships with toxic people. But let's go on. What do they have to say?
Tip number 1 is talk about values. Good relationships are built on a bedrock of commonalities. It's hard to have a relationship with someone with whom you don't have anything in common. When you're discussing politics, talking about shared values rather than a specific policy position can help bring these commonalities to the fore and reestablish a joint connection with each other. For instance, let's say that your wife is in favor of subsidies for solar and wind energy. You oppose this policy because you think it's unfair to entrepreneurs who work in other energy sources like nuclear that wouldn't get the similar subsidies. Rather than arguing over President Biden's latest green energy bill, it might be more useful to highlight how your opposition stems from the value of fairness. Wow, this is like basically exactly what I was saying. Instead of, your wife in this position is probably just saying, oh, I like the idea of not ruining renewable resources. She was just played by Joe Biden.
Sure.
You got to explain to her the principle of what's behind what she's voting for instead of
if she cares.
Yeah. Your wife may disagree with you on this particular issue, but many liberal positions wanting to raise taxes on the 1%, for instance, are often also rooted in a desire for fairness. To be fair, this won't work in every issue. In The Righteous Mind, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt identifies 6 core values or moral foundations that make up how people think about politics. These are care harm, fairness cheating, loyalty betrayal, authority subversion, sanctity and degradation, and liberty oppression. Haidt points out that conservative politics tend to tap into all 6 moral foundations. Liberal politics generally only tap into 3, the care, harm, fairness, cheating, and tyranny, oppression. Many libertarians...
These are the justifications for government, basically?
Yeah, it's just people's core values.
Okay. Well, they think that politics are going to help these things, right? Oh, we can make things more fair. Oh, we can make things... whatever.
Yeah, I think the point is that the people on the left tend to only observe, or not, they don't observe, but they naturally act on 3 of those criteria, whereas conservative people tend to act on all 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does that mean? It means that if your father is liberal and you're heavily patriotic, that may not be a value he's primed to understand or empathize with. But crucially, Haidt points out that most of us do share some core values. Most of us care about fairness, whether it's lambasting the ill-gotten gains of the 1%, criticizing crony capitalists who get rich by seeking favors from Congress, or worrying about welfare queens who drive Cadillacs on the public dime. Most of us want to help the poor, and most of us are concerned about government overreach turning into tyranny, even if liberals and conservatives and libertarians tend to worry about that overreach in different areas.
We'll continue here. The number is 603-283-6160. So, yeah, people have different values. And unfortunately, all of them seem to want to use the government gang to force their values on others, as though that's somehow a good thing. There's more coming up. It is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Facebook says it is temporarily modifying its hate speech policy to allow certain calls for violence towards Russia as a result of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The news of the temporary exception to the hate speech policies was first reported by Reuters, citing internal emails that show Facebook is allowing posts that call for the death of Russian President Vladimir Putin or Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in certain countries, including Russia, Ukraine, and Poland. These changes would also apply to Instagram, which Facebook's parent company Meta owns. A Meta spokesperson said, "We have temporarily made allowances for forms of political expression that would normally violate our rules, like violent speech such as death to the Russian invaders." However, he says the company still won't allow credible calls for violence against Russian civilians. The United Nations has confirmed that 516 civilians have now been killed by fighting in Ukraine, but the true figure is expected to be much higher. More than 2.3 million people have also fled the country. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The UN Human Rights Office says more than 23 children are included in the fatalities list, but most of those killed have been adult men. 908 people have also been injured. Most casualties have been caused by explosive weapons, including shelling by heavy artillery, missiles and airstrikes. The UN says the actual death toll is likely to be much higher because of the difficulty in receiving information from areas of the country where there is intense fighting, such as the cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha, where it's claimed hundreds of people have died.
U.S. stocks lost ground Thursday as negotiations between Ukrainian and Russian officials failed to yield results. All eyes on Wall Street are fixed on the war in Ukraine, but U.S. inflation data also weighed on sentiment during trading hours. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
U.S. stocks have swung wildly in recent sessions as investors continue to monitor the war in Ukraine. Oil prices did slip again on Thursday, with West Texas Intermediate now trading around $106 per barrel, but that failed to give U.S. stocks a lift. The Dow Jones fell 0.3%, the S&P 0.4%, and the Nasdaq slid 1%. Traders on Wall Street also reacted to some key US inflation data out Thursday. The Consumer Price Index rose 7.9% last month compared to a year ago.
In other news, American actor Jussie Smollett has been sentenced to 5 months in prison for falsely reporting that he had been the victim of a racist and homophobic attack in 2019. The former star of the show Empire claimed that he had been attacked in Chicago by Donald Trump supporters who placed a rope around his neck to look like a noose. However, a jury later determined he'd made the whole story up in a bid for attention. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. You can join us here at 603-283-6160 and bring up whatever you want. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian, Matt,
and Bonnie. You
can also join us in real life at Forkfest 2022. It is the 6th annual Forkfest, happening at Rogers Campground, June 27th through July 3rd. It happens in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Absolutely beautiful place to be. If you've never been to Rogers Campground, you're absolutely going to love it. It's just gorgeous there. Just going up by yourself would be a great time, or with the family or loved ones. But going up with, I don't know, dozens, hundreds, we have no idea how many people will attend Fork Fest on any given year. But going up with other people that love freedom makes it even better. And in fact, you get to celebrate Independence Day with us, as they usually have a killer fireworks show at the campground on that weekend, sort of Independence Day weekend. Independence Day falls on a Monday this particular year, so they usually have the fireworks on that Saturday night. So July 2nd, you can probably expect a really great fireworks show if you're at the campground. You can go to forkfest.party to learn more about this unofficial, decentralized libertarian camping event. There's no tickets. All you need to do to attend is just reserve your either RV site, your campsite, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. You can get connected with other ForkFest attendees, past, present, and future, on the Matrix and Telegram chat rooms. Those are linked over at forkfest.party. So drop on in there to learn more about it. And don't forget, the Porcupine Freedom Festival happens the week before, and that is, as of last weekend, it was 94% sold out. So
that's nuts.
Yeah, so if you haven't yet gotten your ticket to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, it's going to sell out. So you should probably do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and camping space is also
completely gone.
Completely gone.
It's gone.
That doesn't mean you can't find a campsite with somebody who's already there. Like
Right.
I've already got a guy who's asked to stay on my campsite. We agreed to let him come on and join us.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, you know.
Get the PorcFest ticket first, and then just kind of ask around and see what you can figure out.
There's groups for that on Telegram and so forth.
So forkfest.party, and check out the Porcupine Freedom Festival as well at porkfest.com. porcfest.com. We continue, Bonnie, with your story from the Foundation for Economic Education about repairing relationships with people that have been burned down over politics.
Yep. We went over the first tip, which was talk about the values or principles. And tip number 2 is find shared understanding. Good communication is built on understanding and empathizing with each other even when we disagree. Here's one powerful way to do that. When you're tempted to talk about why you favor or oppose a certain policy, go deeper and talk about why your position is so important to you. What in your life made you care about that position? Opening up about why you care about a certain policy can help your partner, friend, sibling, child, parent empathize with your beliefs even if they still disagree. Done reciprocally, this can build understanding and compassion instead of anger and contempt. This practice also requires humility because you have to own the fact that you didn't come to all of your ideas via pure, perfect reason. Humility is a powerful antidote to acrimony.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about a lot of this advice here, because I can empathize with the reason why a Democrat wants welfare programs, right? They want to help people. I get that. They're talking in there about the caring aspect of why they're motivated to look to government for these things. They believe that government helps. They believe that they can help the sick, that they can help the poor, that they can help the hungry through government programs. So I can empathize with their reasons, because I give money to the local homeless shelter here in town. There's a privately run homeless shelter, for instance. I've donated to the food kitchen here as well, right? So like, I'm willing to contribute to positive community-based efforts to help people. So I understand, and I can put myself in the shoes of somebody who is having a difficult time in life, and I can say, I wouldn't want that to be me. And so, because we can empathize with somebody else in a bad situation is usually why we give things like charity, right? Like, we can realize, oh my God, that would be horrible to experience. Here, let me try to help ease that person's difficulty. But the difference between me and that Democrat is I'm only willing to help on a voluntary basis. I'm only willing to ask people for help, to persuade them to assist. But the Democrat isn't. The Democrat, and I'm sure plenty of Republicans, they want to use violence. They think that their goals are so important that people should be threatened with violence in order to support them. Well, so I just don't know if explaining to them, empathy is going to really work, because they have no empathy for the victims of the tax man.
Yeah, not everybody realizes that every law is a gun.
No, they don't. They don't want to see it. You can show it.
They don't want to see it.
Right.
Which makes them bad people, which makes them makes me not want to patch things up with them.
I don't know if they're bad people or just totally ignorant and
tragically stupid is also the same thing as bad people in my book, and I don't want to deal with them.
Well, a lot of the times I think that they are only getting their information on why they should or shouldn't pass a bill via mind control programs like the news and school and, all these things.
They're just parroting things.
I think what this one is saying, find shared understanding, is tell people the actual reason you oppose or for some position instead of the reason that they're just told that you because you may argue with somebody like when we talked to Sarah about communism.
Mm-hmm.
Communism's bad, Sarah, and then you're giving all these logical reasons because we're pretty logical here on Free Talk Live, and I think that we like things that are solid facts and things like that. But maybe someone, I don't know about Sarah if she'll ever change her mind. She's so far gone, but
she doesn't even listen.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe some people can actually be changed if you explain to them, no, I actually don't oppose welfare programs because I don't want to help people. Maybe they really think that it's that all Republicans don't want to help people. They're just selfish. Maybe that's what they think. And they just need to be explained. Listen, I'm your friend. Do you think I'm selfish? We've been friends for this long, and this is why I personally oppose this. It's because I think that it can be done better. Or, just give them your true opinions instead of just saying, no, I'm not voting for that crap. Haha. FJB, haha. It's just like a lot of times it's just political discourse nowadays is just the standard prepackaged argument you're allowed to give via the mainstream media.
Yeah,
mindless stone throwing, basically.
I guess this advice isn't bad for people who've never tried these things before. But if you've done these things, if you've explained why it is that you have empathy and that you understand that the state does not have empathy, the state is this cold, heartless organization that just kills innocent people and you don't want to support it. If you've gone through those explanations and these people still don't understand or don't change their minds over some amount of time, then I'm with Matt on this. Walk away and stop trying to persuade these people.
Stranger danger. They are not the people you thought they were. Yeah. They are total strangers. Walk away from them.
Just because you were raised by these people, if they're your family members, just because you happen to go to the same school or the same church or whatever, however they became your friend, doesn't mean that they appreciate who you really are. And if they cannot possibly come to that appreciation and agree to not want to kill you, which is ultimately what the state is, then there are other people in the world who will be your friend. There are other people in the world who do not want to see you punished for disagreeing with them. And you should spend your time with those people instead because your time's limited.
In New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time people don't have conversations that deeply about these issues, like on a core value level, because they're just afraid that the other person is already on that team, and you're on that team. So you just can't have this conversation. But I used to fear that about my friends in San Antonio. And then when I just became open about being a libertarian and then our house got raided, I was honestly so shocked by some of them, how open they were to understanding me. I mean, not all of them, but it kind of made me even more friends with some of them that I really thought I would never have a conversation about politics.
Yeah,
with.
I have all new friends now in people that I've always been friends with, but I didn't know that they agreed with me this hard about something. I was like, oh man, I would have hung out with you in high school if I know that's the way you felt back then.
Are there more points that you want to share from this story?
Yeah, one more.
All right, another tip here from the Foundation for Economic Education on repairing relationships with the people that you care about. The number here is 603-283-6160. Give it a shot, see how it goes, but don't spend your life trying to keep saving somebody.
Waste of time.
There's more coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
Never, ever send a follow-up email asking, "Did you get my email?" Email 101. If it didn't bounce back undeliverable, it got where you sent it. And avoid transmedia pestering, like calling to ask, did you get my email? Or emailing to say, I left you a voicemail. If your emails and voicemails aren't being acknowledged, your problem isn't technology, it's technique. Is your message concise and understandable? Have you boiled it down to seem as relevant as possible to the recipient? In other words, is it the opposite of spam or junk mail? All of this really matters if you're a job seeker. But even if you're not, with money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, the show where anyone can call about whatever they want. And we do mean anyone.
Ginger in Florida, you're on Free Talk Live.
I just thought I'd call and give y'all some news. We found out on a...
Wait, I thought your name was Paula. Are you trying to hide your identity, Paula? Are you trying to protect yourself from the NSA and the New World Order? I thought your name was Paula.
No, anyway...
Your name's Ginger?
Yeah.
Why has it been Paula every other time you've called?
I guess she does call, too. Anyway,
Do you have a twin
I just
sister?
want to give you some information. We just heard on another program that, well, actually, the whole world is going into a world collapse. They said we have till the 1st of June.
So what I want to know, Ginger, is do you know who Paula is?
What? I'm trying to give you some information.
You've given me the information. You said the world's going to collapse in less than a week.
I'm going to start drinking now, and I'm not coming out of it until after July's over.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. In the remaining moments, enough time for you if you dial in now. Here tonight, it's Ian, Matt,
and Bonnie.
We're talking about possibly building relationships or rebuilding ruined relationships that people have burned bridges on regarding their political viewpoints. And I guess in normal world, where you don't actually have any other libertarians around to talk to, this is probably something people find to be, worth doing because they have no chance of having enough libertarians in their area that they can actually be friends with. We have a completely different community here in New Hampshire where if you wanted to, you could just be friends with all libertarians, voluntarists, and liberty-loving anarchists. and spend your time just on those people and forget about the rest of society. There's enough people here. There are thousands of people have moved here to where that can be you if you want to. Now, of course, it's a lot of people recommend you should still get involved in the community and meet other people and maybe, help them understand the ideas of liberty too.
Or you can stay wherever you are and suck wind and hate life and not have any friends that understand you.
Right. I mean, that's got to be a frustrating thing. I remember Jeremy Kauffman gave a good example of one of the ways that his life changed. Jeremy Kauffman is I didn't know this until this last weekend, but he's now the I guess acting executive director or interim executive director of the Free State Project. So kudos to him. But he moved here from Philadelphia, and it was several years ago, so 2017 or something like that, 2015. And he said there was a major change that happened that he didn't even expect, didn't realize was going to happen to him, and that is that he didn't have to moderate himself anymore. And he found himself just realizing this at some point, was that when he lived in Philly, when he was around his friends, he could never really be who he truly was. He could never truly come right out, or at least this is how he felt, right? This is the way he lived.
But it wasn't even the forefront of his brain. He just was automatically doing it, and I totally get that.
Yeah. He was automatically filtering himself to keep his friendships. Because he believed at some level that if he was truly saying the things that he believed, that he would ostracize everyone would ostracize him, and he would have no friends left. And then when he moved here, he realized he could be as radical as he wanted to be, as honest about his viewpoints as he wanted to be, and he's around people that understand.
And that's what's great about the idea of secession and splitting up the union instead of living under one sheet, is that people can be more authentic to themselves if they get to move wherever they know where people are that share the values that they do.
Free people are better people.
It's like a Mormon living in the middle of Florida with no Mormon friends. I don't know if there's not that many Mormons there. Might just feel so much better when they get to Utah and almost everybody in their community is Mormon.
Right. So there was one more point I think you wanted to share, Bonnie, from your story from the Foundation for Economic Education. For those that need help trying to repair relationships, they're giving some advice.
Tip number 3 is see your shared humanity. Like we said, good relationships are built on a bedrock of commonalities. Ideally, some of those commonalities will come from shared political values and experiences. But if there aren't any, you can find another kind of commonality in experiences outside of politics. Commonalities between you and your estranged friend or sibling, spouse, child, parent can form 2x4s that rebuild the relationship between the two of you on a stronger foundation. This can heal the relationship at its core rather than just fixing the political symptoms.
Are they just saying talk about other things? Talk about sports, talk about pop culture, talk about
things outside of politics.
Yeah.
That's a little strange tip. Well, it ends with a caveat I think you guys will agree with. Mm-hmm. One rule in relationship coaching is that both parties have to want to change. That is, the perceived pain of changing has to be outweighed by the pain of the status quo. If the other person doesn't want to mend bridges, there is unfortunately very little that you can do. However, if you both want to rebuild a healthy and thriving relationship, these tips can help you get there.
Yeah, I mean, what they're saying there in that last tip is to just go back to your relationship where you hide your beliefs, right? You guys became friends because you were at work together and you had that in common, and it turns out you liked watching Superman, right? Like, so you had some sort of pop culture thing that you could talk about, or you both liked the Red Sox or the Yankees or whatever, and so you went to a few games together, and eventually at some point you got on the subject of politics and realized you have some fundamental disagreements, and that things, when you start digging a little deeper into this person, you don't have the same, you're not getting along in the same way that you thought that you were. So it's saying if you want to repair the relationship, just go back to the way it was.
I think that's really weak too. I mean,
that's because these relationships are weak that they're talking about
at the outset.
My political opinions have to do way more with my core values as a human being.
Right.
So I just don't think I could. They
don't respect that. And I understand that this could sound culty, right? Like to somebody, you're trying to tell people to, get away from their families. No, that's not what I'm saying. Bonnie's suggestions are fine here. If you're wanting to repair a relationship to where you can still talk to a person, then just agree to say, hey, look, We're not going to talk about politics anymore. And if that's something you can accept, if that's something that, even though, like, to me, for instance, like, doing activism is part and parcel of what I do. If you talk to me for long enough, and this is something that's happened with my mother and I understand she doesn't want to talk about these things. I understand she feels like she gets cornered every time that we have one of these conversations. That's because she's losing them, right? Like she has nothing to say that can possibly, win against the ideas of liberty. So she feels cornered. She feels trapped, and that's an uncomfortable feeling for her. So I make a point of not going to those places with her. We talk about her job. We talk about, the things that she's interested in, her church or whatever, and then I get off the line. Because if I'm on long enough, she might ask me a question about my life, and then I have to tell her what I do and the things that I've been involved in, and she doesn't want to hear it. So in order to keep that relationship okay, we just don't broach those subjects. So it's a superficial relationship at best. I love her. She's my mom, but she's not like my best friend. And she never will be. So anyway, I think they're okay advice for people that are okay with having half-ass friends and keeping them in their lives because they have nothing better. And that's sad.
I recommend just offloading those people.
I agree.
Get
I agree. But you got to move to a place like New Hampshire if you want to have a good pool from which to choose. You can't just show up at the local libertarian meeting and develop good relationships with most of them because they're so weird.
Friends, but it's nothing like having real people in real life, a good community that you know.
Right.
I think starting off, you have to become truly authentic to yourself. You have to go into yourself, find out who you are, and that will lead you to your people.
Yes, you have to be true.
I think that's better advice.
That's what Harry Brown said, the presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. He did some great non-libertarian work, just kind of helping people just be better people. And he said, look, if you are true to yourself, it's Harry Brown's silver rule, not the golden rule, but the silver rule. True to yourself, you're going to attract the people that are like you. And that's just so true. But it's even more true here in New Hampshire, where you can have the libertarian community of the people that are like you. Maybe you're not into politics. Well, there's the outside of the system people. Maybe you're into the families instead of, you're not in the single scene or whatever anymore. There's a bunch of families doing family things. There's community here where you can pick and choose. You don't have to hang around with the weird, awkward, socially,
and you got all kinds too.
Yeah.
Like, there's all kinds of people that have moved for the freedom migration in New Hampshire for sure.
Matt, I know you wanted to talk about the ATF tonight. They're up to some more crazy shenanigans.
Yeah, we don't have much time left, but this is an important story, and I want to get it out there. So I want to explain real quick. This is about silencers. The ATF has issued an edict. What I should say is they changed their mind about a definition this week, which puts a lot of people in jeopardy. So when you buy a silencer, you file a Form 4 with the ATF, you pay a tax, you wait around for like 9 months or a year, and they'll finally get back to you and tell you, yes, you're not a psychopath, you can have a silencer. Then you can go pick it up. There's another way to do it, which takes way less time, is to make your own, and you do that on a Form 1. You can make your own silencer. So there are these basically very close to finished silencer items, which they call solvent traps. They're pretty cheap. You can buy them on the internet. You can get them through Facebook ads. There are a number of good ones. There's a number of bad ones. And people do buy these things, and they file their Form 1 with the ATF. They wait till the paperwork comes back, and then they complete the build of the silencer, and they have a silencer. So the ATF has just mass denied 850 Form 1s.
Oh boy.
The first time they've ever done a mass denial of Class 3 forms. And they denied 850 Form 1s that are all for making your own silencer. And they have not only denied them, they have alerted the local field agents to the people who filed those Form 1s to alert them that they suspect those people are in possession of an illegal silencer.
Wow.
So these are all people who are trying to do the right thing by the government and ask for the permission to build their silencer. And now that they've got the parts ready to go to start the build, they're waiting on the approval, they're actually going to get attacked by ATF agents. 850 people.
I don't know if that gives them a class action lawsuit to try to fight this thing, this new determination, but
it's another commercial for cryptocurrency, too. Like, the government shouldn't be able to just pull up information on what you spent money on and go after you.
Well, they filled out a form, so that's what got them.
Oh.
See you tomorrow. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you